Vernomatic Productions.
Are you ready?
Live from the Metal Mayhem Studios in Rochester, New York.
We are gold.
And heard around the world by metalheads just like you. This is Metal Mayhem ROC.
Heavy metal music.
Your weekly dose of metal music, interviews, album reviews, news, and more. Want to be part of the show? Send us a message through our website, metalmayhemroc.com, or hit us up on Facebook and Twitter. Search Metal Mayhem ROC, a proud member of the Pantheon podcast team.
It's getting nice and heavy.
Now, welcome our hosts, John the Vernomatic Verno, and direct from New Jersey, Metal Walt.
So we got an old friend up here today. The band just released their 20th album. He's live from the gutter. Let's welcome Bobby Blitz from Overkill. Hey, Bob, welcome to the show.
Good to be on Metal Mayhem with the Verminator and Walt. Ready to go, my friends.
Well, you know what? It's a Jersey thing here. Walt's from East Hanover. Not sure where you are, but I'm just going to slide to the side and let you guys talk what you're gonna. But say hello to my co-host, Metal Walt.
What do you say, Walt? How are you, man?
I'm great, man. Yeah, we're probably only a stone's throw away, either up the Garden State Parkway or, I don't know, 287-15, wherever it is.
Yeah, so, 287-15 for me. I'm up in Vernon Valley. I've been up here for 3 decades now. Up in the Skylands in the ski slope area.
Yeah, so I had a question. Is it true, Bobby, that you own a chocolate shop?
Not anymore. I did for a while. I had a couple of brick and mortars. I had one in Newton, New Jersey, and one in Nyack, New York. We used to import from Germany, Belgium, Netherlands. So it was that high-end kind of a family business. Had a relative wife who was from that part of Europe. She was a Dutch girl, and it seemed like the right thing to do at the time. It seemed like a no-brainer having Dutch chocolate with a Dutch girl selling it.
Seem ideal. I'm sure you had like the Overkill logo chocolate with a little green on top and that kind of thing, the heavy metal fingers, right?
You laughed, but we did.
See, I've never been there. I didn't even know, and it's true.
I had a black box, and it said Blitz's Picks on it, and you got a picture, and I think it came with like 12 chocolates. But they were all like darker chocolates, if you know what I mean.
Well, you travel the globe so much, you get to taste all the best chocolates in the world, going to Belgium and the Netherlands. So you got it right.
It was a great business. It was just something that was, but it all spawned out of Overkill. I think that's one of the things that this band has always been about. It's like doing things, so it wasn't about just, okay, we're just going to rock and roll. It started a couple of businesses. I'd sold some cars for a while, some, not just, used Hondas or something, but old, classics, things like that. And did some chocolates. Dee Dee has another business. Dave Linsk has another business. So I think it's about staying busy. And I think that's probably, as Metal Walt would know, it's probably part of the Jersey attitude. No offense to anyone else, right. Especially John.
That's how it is. I mean, I have a day job and my night job is the podcast, and I do it for free. Yeah. So it's still a second job, Hey, so does John.
I'm a prostitute.
Hey, you get free swag, and we get to talk to people like Bobby, and we go to shows.
It's the entitlement back after all those decades of rocking. So, Bobby, we wanted to start it off with a cool visual for you to talk about. So we pulled this out. We had Frank and Alan on, I don't know, it was around 6 months ago or so. Dug apart this book, had some great conversations with them. But back in the heyday, man, look at you over there. Like, wow, the makeup on and stuff. What's these pictures?
We were trying to, that top picture on the left, that is the first rendition of Overkill. All the way on the left, that's Rob Pasaric in the white jacket. There's Dee Dee, Rat, and myself. And we were trying to do more of kind of a Misfits type of a thing, but we just didn't quite get it right. And eventually, I guess by the next picture, the one below that, we were a little bit closer. It was a little bit kind of like Iron Maiden meets Alice Cooper kind of a thing.
Yeah.
That bottom one, there was a short time you were the 5-piece.
That was a 5-piece. That was Bobby Gustafson on the right. And I think, this kid on the left, his name was Joe, but he always was being chased by people. So we always had a different name. It was the strangest story. You got to call me David today. You got to call me Al today. It's just like, whatever. But he lasted in the band for only a couple of months. I guess just that one photo session. And minus him, that is the original lineup for the first 4 records.
And that's down in Dee Dee's basement.
Geez, how do you guys know all this shit?
Well, we're
It's in
good.
the book. It's in the book.
It's in the book. And we talked to Bobby about 2-3 months ago, and we showed him other ones, and then he mentioned this, but it is in the book.
I think Dee Dee's mother said, "You guys all look like prostitutes."
Well, you know what? I take it as a compliment. Before we take a deep dive, we do want to wish you happy birthday. Beginning of the month, 64. We got a lot of questions. We're going to dissect the new one. Both Walt and I have tons of notes. You know, my favorite album since Ironbound. So we'll get to that. First little question I do have for you. Do you find being a little older, when you write this new music, you subconsciously have to pump the brakes on singing a certain style or doing something? You're like, hey, you know, I'm not 25 anymore. I can't, I got to sing this live. I may have to do 40 takes of this. Does the age ever come in?
No. I mean, I'm lucky to say it hasn't at this point. I mean, we still, usually when a guy hits 55, they start, down tuning everything into a D so they can do it live. We're still doing our stuff. The only reason we ever down tune is for effect, and the song stays that way. One song on this record is tuned down to A, but that's more for effect. That's the song Fever. But everything else is in E and 440. So I've never had a problem with it. I mean, you can hear in my speaking voice, it's where my voice really kind of sits, is on that higher register anyway. So it's not something we think about. I can just kind of go for it. I do think on this record, one of the things that happened subconsciously is there may be a little bit more of a relaxed approach to it, but it doesn't lack for authority. The relaxed approach was just about not screaming it, but singing it more. There's more melody, and my voice sat more in the roof of my mouth than back in the back of my throat. So it kind of gave maybe a different texture this long into the career, or 20 records deep. There's actually a different texture on that record, and that's from moving my voice around inside my mouth.
That's awesome. And that's what you were going to say, Bobby, like 20 albums. And as far as my fact checks go, I don't think you guys have ever taken a hiatus, a break. It's been albums all the way through, right? 35 years and growing, correct?
Well, it ran on the clock, I mean, in the early days, that was specifically our visibility. This was, that was pre Al Gore's internet. There was no instantaneous information in 1985. You had to wait for periodicals to read about your favorite bands, or get in the phone, or trade tapes, or whatever it may be, see shows. So you would do a record almost once a year. You did 85. You released one in early 87. Then in 88 one came out, and then in 89 one. So that was your visibility, and we kept that clock with us, even post-internet. Or once the internet came out and you had instantaneous information, we were still doing the same type of a thing. So we never went more than, let's say, 18 months or 2 years without doing a record, except for this recent one, which was kind of, the brakes were put on that by the pandemic.
Yeah. It's a killer record, and we're going to get into that. I got to tell you something, Bobby. This is a kind of a funny story. The Sound Exchange down in Wayne. It's one of the last standing independent record stores, because Vintage Vinyl closed. So I went down there. I guess it was a couple of days after the album was released, and I had 3 CDs I wanted to buy. It was yours, Metallica's, and King's X. Take a guess which album was sold out.
Overkill.
Yes.
Because they only had one copy.
It was like, this is amazing. He was like, yeah, man. He's like, a lot of people came in and got it on the first 3 days. He's like, I didn't order enough. I think I went through 10 or 15. He's like, you got to come back next week. So that should be a testament to you guys. But hey, man, the 20th album, Scorched. I'm going to bring up my slides here, but I wanted to ask a question about the album art. It's always something that's fascinating to me, being an old school metalhead, about the album art. And I think here, like, the signature Overkill color is green. And it was funny, I was doing some fact checking before, and actually I was over in my home office pulling my CD collection out, and I found only 2 Overkill albums that didn't have green in them. Do you know which ones they are?
I could probably guess. I hear Black.
Correct.
And it's It's either Killbox 13 or Relics.
Neither. Well, maybe those two, but it's from the underground and below is in mainly blue.
Oh, that's right. It is. You're correct.
So talk. I mean, just before we get into the tracks, like talk about the Overkill image. You know, the color green and everything that you guys subconsciously do every time to make a killer album cover.
Well, this dates all the way back to those pictures that you saw of us in Dee Dee's basement. Very soon thereafter, we were, an original band. I mean, I think we were still doing half covers by that picture. But as the original songs started coming out of us, we had a few prior, but we wanted to stand out. We didn't want to be everyone else. And I think it was Bobby Gustafson had a background from high school in God, what would you call it?
Graphic design or graphic arts?
When you did T-shirts, it's not screen printing, is it? When you'd actually put the ink down and you'd bring like the big squeegee across into some type of a template. It's screen printing or something like so, but it's actually it's a physical task that you do. Yeah. And you'd have to have it on a board. So we made our own T-shirts, and we started with a white one. And that kind of stood out, but there was other white ones. Then we had a red one, and it kind of stood out, but there was other red ones. We had a green one. Nobody else had fucking green. That was the whole point of the green. It was some kind of it was a basic kids marketing idea to stand out amongst all the other T-shirts. Mm-hmm. And that's how I remember the green being green, that nobody else had it. So that's why we wanted it. And that's why we ended up getting it back, because other bands had, bands that were huge. Iron Maiden had Eddie. We wanted Charlie. We wanted something that would identify us. So you put the green together with the bat, and that was, let's say, the kids' idea of what marketing would be, and something we've taken all these years with us. And all the way up to this day, there's, some form of green or green tinge on the pictures, or green vinyl, green background. But this artwork, for instance, I mean, this is just... I attribute the artwork on Scorched to Travis Smith, who has been with us since Necroshine and has progressed, from year to year to year. I mean, the guy he's doing stuff that you can put under glass and frame at this point. I mean, they look like fantastic paintings, not just some digital imagery kind of thing. And when he came up with these two, we were throwing things at him, and he came up with this conflict of the two skulls, facing off against each other. And then when the title came up, he went berserk with the fire. I was like, well, we've had fire, but I said it was 20 records ago. What's the fucking difference if we're ripping ourselves off? This is a beautiful piece of art, So that's what I attribute that to, is Travis Smith. And that's definitely not our insight into what great art should be. It's all Travis.
I love the green cassette, man. I think I need to go on the website and buy that, man, because I still got a cassette player, because I got a lot of old bootleg show cassettes, a lot of Overkill shows, from the Birchill and Nose on cassette, and it would be nice to have that up in my collection. So.
I'll tell you, isn't it funny that, I still have cassettes around here too. I was just talking to a guy the other day, and we were talking about, DVRs and DVDs and all this other shit. And I'm like, something, I still have a VHS player. And I have it connected to a little 19-inch TV, but I can have line outs on it that I could go into my computer. But the whole point of that was that if I wanted to play those old VHS tapes that I had of the band, like from the early days where people would give them, I said, I can't get rid of the VHS player.
No, you can't, because you have some great archives from your earlier career, or old football games or something you taped off TV, maybe some porn on the wiggly lines or something,
Here's a funny thing about the cassettes. 35 years ago, when I was in high school, I was doing broadcast radio. And about 2 weeks ago, I received a cassette from an old listener, said he was going through his archives and he found this cassette. He mailed it to me. So here's this. Yeah, same thing. Here's a cassette of me in 12th grade, 1986, doing the Metal Mayhem radio show. Fucking playing Overkill, Feel the Fire, Metallic. It was the night. What it was the night we premiered Master of Puppets.
Great.
We got an advance. So, hey, you know what you got to do, Bob? You got all that stuff you have. You have to send it to one of those transferring companies and have all that stuff digitalized before it won't play, on a serious note, because
That's a good point. Yeah, because you can't just let it sit there either. Right.
No.
Yeah.
It oxidizes. Maybe we could get a 2-for-1 deal, Bobby, because I got about 8,000 cassettes of stuff that probably need to be transferred too. But
I'm not doing our 2-for-1 if you have 8,000.
So, Bobby, we want to get into the new album. We love it, as we said. We're going to cover off on most of the songs. So I'm going to start it off. I mean, like you talk about like the first 3 tracks. It's like a 1, 2, 3 kick in the teeth for me. It's like, holy effing ship on this. I mean, Scorched, you look at the video, there's fire going on and you got bells going on in the middle. And I'm like, what are these guys doing? Are they trying to get like an opening slot on the Trans-Siberian 2023-24 winter tour? Blitz on the riser in the beginning, special guest, but no, it really is a killer track. What I found on some of the tracks is Dave, there's a little bit more intricate playing on some of these songs. He's like kind of like, showing a little more maturity on that. And I hear that in the song, you know what? And then you go into the second song, Going Home, right? It's that cool guitar, little cymbal intro, and then it kicks into gear, and it's got this kind of neat melodic bridge. I can't even describe it, like a melodic bridge that goes into the chorus. Then it has sort of this European, hey, power metal sing-along kind of thing. And, totally two killer songs. So talk about those two off the bat.
Well, I mean, there's a right way to open a record and there's a wrong way to open a record, and we've always been of the school that you have to kick the door in, you have to kick it in with something, to get people's attention, to say you're back, I mean, you don't knock on the door politely, and I think that that's what Scorch is all about. I mean, it's in many cases, it's one of the best songs on the record, just based on the fact that it's the opener, I think. And Didi will always, when he's, doing mock titles for songs and doing riffs, he'll mock title the songs. I've had a song called Opener on my demos all the way back, probably since Horoscope, working with Didi. This is Opener. He doesn't know what it's going to be called when it's done, but he thinks of it in his head as Opener. And on this song in particular, he gave me 2 versions of it. And one of them had these background vocals that almost sounded like, I don't know what I could liken it to. Maybe, thunder. Like an AC/DC kind of a thing in it. And I was like, what the fuck is this? And as soon as somebody puts that in the head of the guy who's writing the melodies for it, you're like, now I'm fucked, because all I can hear is these background vocals. So I went away from it for a long period of time, and it just finally came to me to marry the two together with those riffs. Now, when it comes to Dave Linsk, I think one of the reasons that you hear more Dave, I don't know if it's more intricacy. He's always been this cat. It's just that there's more room for him. With these melodies, it brings out his best attributes as a guitar player, because he's playing counter melodies to the melodies in a lot of cases. Now, obviously, the riff in Scorched is by itself, that opening kind of guitar salvo that's just coming in where he's doing that hammer feel thing to the center, and then the re-intro later on. Dave's always had that, but his talents lend themselves to this record a lot more so. Like, even when you get to Going Home, which is still kind of a thrashy number, it's drenched in melody. The entire record is drenched in melody. There's no fear of melody on this record. You get to the heavier songs like Twist of the Whip, sure, there's blast beats and thrash vocal lines, but fuck, you get to the chorus, it's like you could sing along with this thing, So I think that's the uniqueness about the record, is that it takes on multiple personalities and really gives a guy like Dave the opportunity to shine more so than to just be part of the mix. He's really out in front of the mix and really one of the MVPs. Him and Jason Bittner are the 2 MVPs on this record, in my opinion.
Well, let's not forget about Derek either.
Fuck him.
Well, my notes, I don't want to jump ahead to Bag of Bones, but to Going Home, these are my notes on Going Home. Very accessible, almost overkill light, under the influence type, and features some riffs that I'll take you back to the glory 80s days. So when I say overkill light, I think it was what you were talking about when you answered my first question about the song lent itself to that type of singing. You don't have to go a million miles an hour. If you want to go a million, you get tracks like, Harder They Fall. That fits right into the overkill pocket, 3.5 minute song. So, the musicianship, Bobby, what I want to ask you about is you're old school. You talked about it with the opening song, you're kicking the door down. But more importantly, old school, you went back in the day, you had 40 minutes to get something on a platter. And so there's no filler. And the sequencing was vital. This album has sequencing. It's you put it in, it clocks into 50 plus minutes, but it seems like it's 40 minutes. It's every song stand on its own, and every one of these songs is starting to turn into like an old friend. Here's my question. Sequencing, what went into it? And is this the type of album where you're going to rehearse 4, 5, 6 songs for the tour and rotate them in?
I mean, good question. Actually, good observation. I mean, it's a forgotten art is sequencing. We come from the era of sequencing, where you go into, master disc and get it mastered by somebody, and you would sequence the record right there. And a lot of thought went into that. I think it's a different world today, but we still think we're making records. When we were kids, we were making LPs, you know what I mean? LPs and cassettes. I mean, Walt has a cassette, you know what I'm saying? I mean, and you have the LPs. John has the LPs, Walt has the cassette. But we still think that's what we wanted to do when we were kids, was make LPs, records. So sequencing is a huge part of it for us. The third song is hugely important. The second song is hugely important. The last song is hugely important. But the biggest thing is number one. If you don't have number one, who the fuck wants to hear number two? That's the way we think about it.
Yeah.
Now, in a different world where we're rolling out singles, we're rolling out The Surgeon, we roll out Wicked Place. We wanted to show a little diversity. The Surgeon was about, okay, it's the Overkill 101 template. To some degree, it was established in Hammerhead in 1985, but it's morphed into something different by 2023. It's become, the modern version of that Hammerhead template. It's thrashy, It's what you kind of expect from us. We wanted to show people, hey, this fucking pandemic may change your lives personally and fucking professionally, etc. But some shit don't fucking change. So that was why we picked that. And then the second one was Wicked Place, which had that swinging groove. So we wanted to have contrast between the two. Okay, so it was even sequencing when it came to how we were releasing the singles. So we think in those terms. Now, when it comes to rolling these out on the road, we're already 4 songs deep. And that is Forged, of course, The Surgeon, Wicked Place. But we're going to, in the next rehearsals, we add Twist of the Wick and possibly Harder They Fall. Because they're just screaming to be played. And that it adds the element of danger to playing. I mean, I know I'm preaching to the choir when we do an Overkill show. They're coming because they want to come and they love what preceded it and they love what the present holds. But still, that feeling of danger that we've never done the song before in a live situation is what makes it all worthwhile. I mean, that's where you get the fucking high from. And that's a high I'm chasing since that picture I took with Bobby Gustafson in Dee Dee Verdi's basement. I'm still chasing that fucking high, So that's why those songs will be integrated into the set over the next year.
Well, if it's any consolation, my notes for Harder They Fall. The first thing I says in caps, this has to be in the live set. Little over 3 minutes, just chugs away. Bittner is pounding. Great chant, Harder They Fall. Totally see the pit speeding up live. Plus, Dave Lintz's leads are killer. Great song.
You know how you get Jason to play faster? You can't do that any faster.
Maybe 10 years ago, Jason.
I'm joking, of course. He did a great job on this record. He really, again, it's one of the MVPs on it. And that's his speed and his consistency they're unparalleled in my opinion.
I have a funny story about Jason Blitz. Right before the pandemic, you were over in Europe, fall 2019, something like that. I work for a company in Belgium, and you happen to be in town in Antwerp the week I was there. So of course I go to the show, and I'm walking down the street, and I see Jason outside, and I'm like, "Hey, Jason, what's up? My name is Metal Walt." And he's like, "Wait a minute, you're an American accent. Yeah, I'm from Jersey too. What the fuck are you doing here? Are you stalking us or something?" I said, "No, I'm on a business trip." But yeah, you talk about, I mean, I wanted to get into the live stuff later, but you talk about like the the whole world makes sense moment. I'm drinking those strong Belgian beers, watching you guys at Trick Zal, and you play Welcome to the Garden State. Welcome to the Garden State. I'm the only guy there that understands any of it. I'm half in the bag with these delicious beers, and I'm like, God is shining the light on me. This is perfection here.
Were you looking for a big-haired gum-chewing Jersey girl?
Not gonna find that in Belgium. You might find a big girl, a big Dutch girl, you know. But anyway, so hey, back to some of the tracks on the new album. Like, and I'm a funny guy. I like to be stupid about the humor, but like when it comes to The Surgeon, like, and some of the lyrics, like what is this stuff about? Like, I'm imagining listening to The Surgeon, and I can imagine you go off stage and you come back with a doctor's coat, a white doctor's coat on, with some scissors and a big syringe, and you're gonna say, "I am the surgeon, and I cut your dreams away." Like, what are some of the inspiration you get for writing these lyrics?
You know, I mean, I suppose somewhere it morphed into something that had a little bit of humor to it. It was honestly very fucking shittily depressing when it was first written, because under the circumstances it was written were that of the pandemic. And the surgeon was our fearless leader, you know, who you'd hear every night go on the news at fucking 6 o'clock and contradict himself from the fucking day before. Yeah. Eventually, like many of us, he said, I've had enough of this shit and enough of this fucking surgeon. And that's why the song eventually became that way. It became kind of, I can't say, maybe the vocal line itself is kind of silly, the way it bounces back and forth. We were killing for the martyr, we were killing for the Pope. But I just wanted to get something in there that was rhythmic and make it sound that, do what I say, do what I say, do what I say, not what I do what I say, not what I do.
Yeah.
So I took that depressive end of it and made it kind of hypocritical with regard to the lyrics. So I suppose that's where you're picking up the humor through it. Yeah. I'll cut your dreams away. You know, it's just that simple. And listen, when all is said and done, no one has the right. So
what about Twist of the Wick? What is that about? I mean, number one, it's a killer heavy track. I like that little, like, sounds like monks chanting in the middle. Like, did you go down to the local church and get some 97-year-old priest to do some chants?
Hey, listen, I'm sitting right here, okay? That was a tougher song for me to write. I never really saw I didn't see that one. Usually I can see the outcome of the song. I think most guys can. You know, you at least envision where you're supposed to go with it. I never could, and I don't understand why, because it just seems like it's in my wheelhouse. But I think the difference was the fact that there was thrash, you know, coupled with super melodic type parts, you know, again, bathed in kind of melody. But you know, Twist of the Wick is just something that I picked up when I rode with a club here in Jersey. And, you know, to twist the wick is just get the
motorcycle reference, right?
Twist the wick, get the fuck, get out of here. You know, everything's exploding around you. Twist the wick. You know, that's as simple as it is. There's a solution to all things, you know? Yep. So I just implied it into the song. But, you know, I was listening to the song and I finally got it down and I was working on it in sections. I had the pre-chorus and I had the chorus. I was really satisfied with them. I wasn't going to be doing anything in the center, but I needed the verse. And I finally scored the verse and I had been working on this one section over and over again. And I had the dude who I work with play it back. I'm like, play it back. Just play the whole song through. I want to hear it. I haven't heard it in a month. And he played it and then the monks came on and I'm like, what in the fuck is this? He goes, Dee Dee said this. I'm like, when? He goes, it's a month ago. It's him and Derek and Michael Romeo all fucking around with a fucking computer. And I loved it. You know, it added such another characteristic or nuance to the song that kind of took it somewhere else between the church bells and the monks singing and there's cellos going on. I'm like, what the fuck are we missing? We're just missing, you know, the birthing of a baby on this thing. I mean, there's so much different fucking shit in here that it made it that much interesting. So, I mean, I love the song. It came out as one of my favorites once I actually saw the final, you know, the result. The result came before the vision, put it that way.
It must be Dee Dee's influence on playing big band music once a year down in Jersey, you know? So that must be, he's tinkering in with horns and I don't know what else, cellos, right?
I like it,
well, there's more. I got a double dip, the Wicked Place Fever combo. Bongos, you know, channeling your inner Sabbath. It's a nice bluesy. You're singing cool. It's another, another example of you guys stepping out of your comfort zone. But hey, it works. It fucking kills.
But, for some reason, I always thought I wrote records for other people, and I realized more than a decade ago, I don't know if this is maturity or something. I realized I was a selfish bastard. I was doing this for myself. I'm a liar to say, listen, I'm part of the community, of the metal community. I'm honored to be such for so long. But I write these records, or my parts of the records, because I love performing this shit. And whenever it goes different into something like Fever or something like Wicked Place that has that groove that I was singing those kind of groove songs when I was 14 years old in the fucking shower, man. I mean, that's right off of a fucking Sabbath record almost, from that era, and for Wicked Place. And then the thing, when we got to Fever, I was like, fuck, this is going to be great if we could get this to work. And finally, when it came together, I was like, this is fun. This is what it's about.
What's that? The groovy chorus line, 3-12-20, 2/3 money, 313, and shut my mouth. Like, what the hell is that about?
3-12-20, all shot down. That was the day they shut the world down.
3-12-20. Yeah.
Shot down, and I don't know if I believe her. 2/3 money, where's the ground? I don't even know I believe it myself. We call it Fever. So it was the whole point was I was writing it way later on, but I used the date of the last show that we were doing, which was 3-12-20. I wrote it later on saying 2/3 of this is about the cash, isn't it?
Which, by the way, that was going to be a talking point for later. I was supposed to go to the next show in Jersey at the Wellmont Theater, which turned into the infamous 609 fucking days later t-shirt, with Phil Demo playing. So yeah, you got there, right?
It took us a long time. I mean, the lyrics in the center of that were done. I think the next line is 313 and shut my mouth. It's, just shut up and take what we're feeding you. And so it was a day-to-day kind of experience when we were in Charlotte, North Carolina, and they said, Live Nation was like, we think we're shutting the world down for shows. I was like, they're shutting the world down. Everybody get their fucking clean underwear on because we're heading home after this, and because you just knew it was going to happen. So all I did was put it in the song just to be as sarcastic as I possibly could with regard to the edict of those who rule the world.
I have one last song, and then we're going to take our walk down heavy metal memory lane because this guy's itching at the bit. I mentioned earlier about Bag of Bones. It's a great song. Tell us about this song. It's out of the comfort zone. Another one, and an excellent album closer.
I call it the Overkill dance song.
Okay.
I mean, you can see you can picture some booty being shaked to this. Yeah. I mean, this is like we were talking about mock titles before. I mean, I had one that was called 10. And I only got 10 songs. And then I got a mock title one that said last one. I said, how can there be 2 number 10s? And I got on the phone with Didi, and he said, no. He goes, last one is just because it's so much different than everything else that it needs to be somewhere by itself, And he goes, and I just want to do it because it's fucking fun. And I was like, well, good for you, to have that kind of motivation behind it. So when I got into the song, and it's really one of the first ones I did because it was just fun. They're just goofy lyrics. It's traveling. It's kind of like, it's kind of taken across the stratosphere and equating it to touring. There's there's no depth in it. It's just supposed to be, does anything strike you in it? Shake that bag of bones, you'll never be alone. It's kind of like with regard to those who love the same shit that we love collectively. So I think one of my favorite songs on the record too, just because of its, like you said, its difference.
Yeah, totally. No, it's a killer one. So Bobby, I on the touring front, I know you've been through Europe already. I think you're going out to the UK. I was looking at the list. You got a show this weekend in the UK. So what's the plans for the US? I assume coming in the fall.
Well, the UK got canceled. That guy had some trouble. That was Mannerfest outside of London. That had gotten canceled. This is the second year in a row he's had this issue. but whatever. I mean, I'm sure it was a ticket issue, selling tickets. Everybody's talking about logistics. There's, logistic this, logistic that. People just don't want to part with their cash. I fucking get it. They went for a couple of years and not working. They don't want to part for the cash, and they don't want to pay high prices for tickets. So it's totally understandable. The U.S. will start on the 13th of July. It's going to start out west. We're assuming at this point San Francisco or somewhere in the Bay Area to start. Might be the American Music Hall, might be the Fillmore. I'm not really sure where. It's going to run about 3+ weeks. It's going to come all the way down the West Coast and across the Southwest into the Southeast into Florida and then up. So if you can picture like the big horseshoe kind of a it's going to be all around the perimeter of the states from San Francisco all the way back to the New Jersey area.
Who are you taking out on the road?
It'll be Exhorter from New Orleans and Heathen from San Francisco. I'm sure they're very happy to be starting in San Francisco, being that they just get dropped off by wives and girlfriends.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, we can't wait to see it come through, of course, every time.
It'll be great. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's just good. I mean, even like you were saying, the Wellmont show, I mean, that was just good to get out there and just, just to be involved in it again. That was, I remember doing an interview with a cat I know from Zurich, and he was, he wanted to do an interview during the pandemic. And I'm like, what the fuck does this guy want to talk about during the pandemic? What am I doing with my spare time? I'm learning how to cook. I'm trying to make some money doing some other shit. I adopted a dog. I mean, what do you want to talk about? But he wanted to talk about, what's the worst time for the band? And I said, well, it's right fucking now. I said, this is the longest time I haven't been on a stage in my, since all the way back in 1983. And I think that's what he was getting at. And I didn't understand it until it came out of my mouth. I said, this fucking blows. We got to change this. Yeah. So that Wellmont show was the change, or the change back to normality for me.
It was definitely something special. I mean, there's always something special about an Overkill show. It's like I was saying, I've seen 20 shows, Bobby, and that comes from the heart. It's been a long time. And, I want to cover off on some of these shows, but like, there's something about the Overkill show. The lights go, not even the lights go down, the lights dim. And then the smoke starts slowly building up, and you don't know it's coming yet. And then you get the intro music, and then you're rubbing your eyes, you can't see, you're coughing, and then it just goes right in, and it darkens down, and the green comes on. But totally. So I want to bring up my presentation here and show you something. Give me a second here. So I pulled out today the ticket stubs that I had. And these are the ones. Wow. So I think I started my career up top at the Fastlane show. First time I saw Overkill in 1992. I was 22 then. And then the ritual for me, and you can appreciate this being a Jersey, New York guy. You guys came through with every year you played a show in October and you play a show in April. It was mainly the Birch Hill. It was the Cricket Club in Irvington. And then you moved over a little bit to Club Benet. But it was the ritual for me was sometimes just as much fun as the show. When the Birch Hill shows, it was like you drove down from North Jersey. You stopped at Bourbon Street, the Go-Go Bar. You got a little tanked up. Then you drove down the road. You pulled into the dirt road of the Birch Hill, almost flipped a car over once. I remember seeing you guys. Hit the sign. And then you go to the show. The headliner doesn't go on until 12:30. You go down Route 9. You turn back around, and either you go to White Castle or the Peter Pank Diner. And then you get home at 4 a.m. It's just, you did it twice a year. It was just the ritual. So,
John, I gotta clear something up. So you get in the car, you go down Route 9, you stop at Bourbon Street because the band's going to be there before the show, and this way you can get your shit signed.
I just like the fact that he called. I like the fact that he called the strip club the Go-Go. The Go-Go. It was 1968. The Go-Go.
I don't know. That's the Go-Go bar. There was a girl there that had the ability to climb up the pole, and then she would flip upside down with her legs up, holding on, and come down, and she would put a beer mug without a lid on her head and slide all the way down and never drop it. That was like worth the price of admission in and of itself.
She does. That's my sister. She does that at Thanksgiving.
Well, okay. Send us your address. We're coming.
Go.
So, hey, Bobby, talk about some of these old days in Jersey, like the Birch Hill and some of these shows down in the gutters of Jersey, like you used to say.
Yeah, I mean, the cricket club, this was, geez, they started doing stuff. That was right outside of Newark.
Not the nicest area of the world.
It was not conducive to bringing people in to the shows. There was also at the cricket club, they did the New Jersey Metal Meltdown. I don't know if you remember that, but that was done by a guy named Jack Koshik, who actually started the Milwaukee Metal Fest out in Milwaukee, which is actually happening right now again. This weekend, but Jamie Josta from Hatebreed has picked it up. But Koshik he tried to bring that to New Jersey, and he did it at the cricket club, but then moved it down to, I think it was the Paramount Theater down in Asbury. So he did some decent things. But I remember playing the Fast Lane, and that was one of those gigs I remember that we did. Like, should we do it, or are we going to be relegated to playing like places like the Fast Lane from now on? And we got stuck in that for a while. The New York Steel Show was Eddie Trunk. Mike Piazza was like the co-host of it, which was awesome. A big baseball fan. You know, I was talking baseball. He's talking flotsam and jetsam to me. He's like, I know all your stuff. I got all your... I'm like, what's the best part about being in a professional baseball team? He's like, I like flying coach because people can't believe when they see me back. I had some good fun with that. BB King's, that was kind of... that was back into the city for us. That was one of the cool things about going to BB's, because we did a few gigs at BB's right on 42nd. Yeah. Before you knew it, we were over on 43rd at what was the Best Buy Theater, Sony. Now is I think it's called the Palladium over 43rd and 7th, or 43rd and Broadway. So there was some, these are some good memories for me.
I don't know if you remember the one at the bottom, the Hard Rock Cafe show. That was, I think it was an Eddie Trunk one, and you had to get on the guest list for it. And you didn't have a drummer. I don't remember who the drummer was at the time, if it was Ron Lipnicki or whatever, but Portnoy had to fill in on that. And I remember that show specifically because I think you guys did Symptom of the Universe, and maybe it was Highway to Hell or something, but it was like a cool, chill show with some Overkill songs and half covers.
It was Hard Rock. That's when the Hard Rock was up on 57th, I think.
Yeah.
I'm probably looking at it. Yep. 221 57th. It was Portnoy. It was Mike Portnoy filled in. It was our drummer Tim had just gotten married, and his wife had a child that was ill, and he said, I can't do it. I can't come for this. And Portnoy put it together in 2 days. And Mike is that kind of guy, Mike has always been, he's not just that drummer. He's that encyclopedia where information that comes in, what he's heard, is always comes out of him. And ever since that show, he'll show up somewhere where you least expect him. Like Sweden Rock, Crocodile Rock, and fucking Allentown, with a pair of drumsticks in his back pocket. Say, hey, can I play? Yeah, sure. I got no problem.
Hey, Bobby, I'm going to pivot into a few listener and tweeter questions that lines right up with this. Vince McDowell asks, in honor of your BPMD covers album and your Metal Allegiance performances, if you could sing any song live with another band, what song and what song would it be and what band would it be? Vince McDowell.
Any song. Obviously I would pick a Priest song. Because I know I'm not Rob Halford, but I aspire to be such. If that makes any sense. And I have the balls to go up and do it and even fail if that's the case. But I love Priest songs. And the song I would pick would be Painkiller.
They'll test your chops. Let's see. Next question is Mike Anthony of Rochester. Ask Bob, are you still in contact with Rat Skates or any other of the members of the long Overkill fraternity? And let's give a nod to the late Sebastian Marino. We lost him beginning of the year. He's a Rochester native. Can you comment on any of these past members, and especially Sebastian?
Of course. Hey, Mike. Yes, I am in touch. Sebastian actually had opened a production company, and we, up until, I guess it was pre-pandemic, 2018 or so, we'd always rent a lighting package from him. And what he would do, he was going between Rochester and Florida. He'd remarried and went to Florida and had like a place down there, and he would hang out with Dave Linsk. But he would try to pick up the lights himself at the last show so that he could see all the guys, once a year. So we always kept that wide open. And whenever I got a bill from him, I would call him and complain about it. You son of a bitch! Is this what the amount we agreed upon? But so there was always that, great camaraderie between us. I'm in touch with Joe Comeau, obviously, since Seb passed. Tim Mallory, I see when I'm down in Florida. Sid Falk is on my email and text almost on a regular basis. He's doing music that he's producing and mixing on his own, mixing for other bands. He's out in Oklahoma still. I'm not in touch with Rat or Bobby, so that's the first rendition of the band. Canavino, Rob Canavino owns a bar in upstate New York. He pops out whenever we're in Rochester or somewhere in that area, Binghamton. He'll come down and say hello to us. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else. Eddie Garcia, Ron Lipnicki is in touch with us. So probably only the first two guys, and Merrick Gant I'm not in touch with.
And he's gonna kill me, but my buddy up here in Rochester does sound and lights, Big John.
Oh, John, yeah.
Yeah. What's John's last name? This gets me all the time.
John,
well, when
it's John and Brian. John, I keep thinking John Waters, but it's Water Street. We called him Big.
Yeah. Well, now we're gonna have to edit this out. But
all right. Well,
in any case, the Rochester connection. Of course, we got the Penny Arcade. You did Backstreets. But the last question I have from a listener, his band actually opened up for you guys at the historic German house, Bill of Order of the Dead. It was Overkill, Crowbar, and local support there. Bill asks, how do you keep your voice in shape when in the downtime? Does the band practice regularly, vocal exercises, or screaming in your car when you're bumping around town? Bill from Order of the Dead.
I remember that gig at the German hall. That was actually a good gig. Keeping a voice in shape, I don't worry about it. It's not like, I'm not like one of those dudes, I mean, obviously you see me vaping here. I used to be a fucking Marlboro guy. I was for, until 2012. I dropped them. It helped my voice as soon as I did. And helped my air and helped my health. But I don't think, I forgot my scarf. I don't think, I better warm up or, I'm fucked. I never think this stuff. I think there's something to be said about not worrying about it that helps it. I do aspire to be better. I think that helps me. We don't tune anything lower so that I can reach it. We do everything in the original keys that they were written in. The only time we, detune or down tune is like, for instance, on Fever, it's tuned down to an A, but the point is so it shakes grandma's dishes in the china cabinet, not so that I can reach those notes. The idea is for effect more than anything else. So I think it's not worrying about it and, just not over abusing it. But I mean, I'm a beer drinker, I like having some fun. I like yelling at fucking live sports. I mean, the whole thing. It's not like, oh my God, I'm a singer, I'm delicate. It's none of that. None of that. Delicate, I'm not.
Hey, Bobby, just going back to the touring, it's a bit of a cliche question, but I remember one other show back in the day. You played in a convention hall in Asbury. You were filming the 20th anniversary for the DVD. And I was at that one too. And I remember it was the longest Overkill show. It was like 2 hours and 10 minutes. And it's hard when you got 20 albums, but how just do you sit down every tour and decide how to pick 15, 16 songs that are going to fit in 90 minutes. I mean, obviously there's some you got to have to do and a sprinkling of the new material, but where do you go back and how do you go back and pick out those deep tracks and gems?
Well, I mean, you have to, I mean, we don't ever talk about it, but there's got to be certain songs that are in there. I mean, there's some classic songs that have to be in there and they get shifted around, but I don't think Elimination or Rotten to the Core has ever left the set. I think of the newer songs, one of them is Electric Rattlesnake, has never left the set since it was written. They just seem to lend themselves to good energy when it comes to the crowd. but in Union We Stand gets inserted in and out. It'll be exchanged with a song called Bastard Nation. So I kind of look at it in percentages. It's got to be 25% new, or it's just not going to fucking work, or it just won't be that exciting for the band. 25% new, 25% classic. We're at half of it right there. Then some hidden shit, and then you just kind of dust it off with, what do you want to hear? What do you want to hear? What do you want to play? You know, that kind of a thing. So it's really a democratic process with 50 to 70% of it being new and old classic stuff.
Yeah, that's killer. Well, can't wait to get out there and hear the new stuff, and of course everything that we're looking forward to, and can't wait to get my eyes and throat clogged with that good old smoke coming at you. Last point before we let you go, Bobby, you mentioned before, if there was you wanted to sing maybe Judas Priest or that kind of thing. We were talking to Jason McMaster back in December, and this was right around the time when he filled in for Mark Tornillo, and then he filled in for Johnny Bush. And he gave us a very long version of how he landed the gig. And he mentioned that you were the first choice to fill in for Accept, but you guys were out on the road in Europe. Is that a fact?
Well, yeah. I mean, Tornillo got to me. I mean, it was Mark had some trouble, and then Wolf gave me a call, got my number from Tornillo. I was recording Scorched. I mean, I wasn't going to leave right in the middle of that to go out and to do 4 or 5 songs and maybe blow my voice out with stuff I don't know that well, and then come back, and then our stuff would be in a little bit of jeopardy. So I suggested a few people, and they eventually ended up with Jason, who's a great singer, who's done a ton of stuff. I mean, he was a perfect choice for the whole thing. But I got him in touch with I think Zetro and Asagata, stuff like that. I said, I got plenty of people that we can get in touch with. And I didn't have Jason's number, but he was, I was the first call. I think Jason was the confirmed call, and was a great choice for helping it Accept.
Yeah. Well, you can step in the shoes anytime. Maybe someday you'll do a big cover show and do all your best classics, You can bring it down East Hanover. I got a big yard, man. We'll set you up in the yard on the blacktop.
Oh, man.
We'll do a backyard barbecue with Overkill at the Franco House, sponsored by Metal Mayhem ROC. John can come down with his food service and cater it.
Good fun.
Well, Bobby, it was been a pleasure, man. This was awesome for me, and felt like I finally closed the deal on years and years of following you. More to come. And hey, when you guys are back around in the fall, hopefully I'll say hi. We'll have a beer together.
Yeah. Well,
a fantastic interview, both of you.
Thank you. I have a question. When is the Jersey show?
The next one?
Yeah, you said you were making your way back, Florida, and then up north.
We have this thing going on. We're trying to get this other show, so it's going to depend on that. I know I'm sounding very cryptic here, but I'm just not at liberty to talk about this. It's, these people do everything like this.
Yeah. All right.
So,
well,
yeah. I mean, it's just. I mean, I'm going to wait for their answer to see. It would be a great show for us if we can get it. It's right around the beginning of August, so that'll depend on where we go. Whether it's going to be a Jersey show, whether it be a Long Island show, something like that. It'll need to be a little bit removed from Jersey.
Well, now that I feel I've been consulting for the Overkill direction, we do have the Metallica show in Jersey, and they have that open date on that Saturday.
Really?
They're playing. They're playing Friday and Sunday up at the Meadowlands. So let's get Overkill, because I'm coming down to spend the week with the Francos. We're going to shows left and right, and
keep your eyes open. That's all I can tell you.
All right, that sounds great, man. That sounds great. If not, Bobby, sooner than later, maybe I'll hit you up, and we'll meet on Cracker Barrel on Route 80 for a nice cup of coffee. What do you think? We could get the catfish with the 2 sides for $10.99.
Fucking butter on that fucking catfish. It's a year's worth of butter on each one of them.
We don't have Cracker Barrel. Enough of them. I love it.
Jersey guys are nuts. Thanks, Bob. Be safe.
All right, boys. Take care.
Cheers, man. All
Thank
right,
you.
thanks, guys. See ya.
The Vernomator, Bobby Blitz, signing off. I approve this fucking message.
Overkill. Overkill. Overkill.
I can't.
Metal for life.
Thank you for listening to Metal Mayhem ROC. Check out our website at metalmayhemroc.com for information on podcasts, archives, links to all our live radio shows, and all sorts of info. Please like, follow, and share with everyone, even your non-metal friends. And always remember to keep it heavy.